that's my Achilles heel here and everything. Hi, I'm Chris Daniel. I'm faculty professional development manager here for eCampus and the Instructional Design Center. With us presenting today is Vicki Sikora. She's a former business educator, and she really brings a focus on usability and simplicity into her instructional design or ID practice. And one reason I like working with her so much is she talks about what we absolutely have to have, and that's what we should focus on in online teaching and learning. And then there's nice to know stuff, which I think she likes too, but she has a real common sense approach to making courses usable and functional for students. And she currently spearheads our current and future initiatives with Ultra. I don't know if you all have heard of that, but it's Blackboard's new iteration, kind of the new look and feel to the learning management system. So with that, Vicki, take it away.
Thank you, Chris. So can you guys hear me pretty well? Good on the audio? Awesome, yeah. Thank you. So before I kind of jump into the presentation, this is all about PowerPoint today, and some kind of maybe some different ways to use PowerPoint. So hopefully you guys are in the right room. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. So before we get into that, I want you guys, you can either use your mics or type it in the chat. Give me kind of a couple words thinking about PowerPoint. So maybe what does it do, or what do you think about it, or if you had to describe it in a few different words. So just give me like a quick little something like that. So Sarah Hazelmeyer says slideshow. Visual aid. Death by PowerPoint. Ouch.
Crutch.
Familiar learning tool. Awesome. So let me go ahead and I'm going to work on sharing my screen while these keep coming in. On screen 2. Okay, so today we're going to talk a little bit about using PowerPoint in maybe some new and different ways than what we're used to using it for. So our goals today, I'm hoping that you are going to be inspired to create an interactive PowerPoint. So that can mean a lot of different things. We might have some hyperlinks, we might have some videos, maybe we try some branching scenarios or some kind of like reveal type items. And then our second objective, and this one's a much smaller one, and that's going to be sharing that through OneDrive, which just makes it a little easier for your students to access it. So these are some kind of, I don't know, big ideas when it comes to using our PowerPoints online. If we're not going to have audio with our PowerPoints, we need to make sure we're using full sentences, right? In the classroom, maybe we use bullet points because those are the things that we're going to talk about. But, if you're reading this later, you're going to want to make sure that you're using full sentences, kind of like I've done here, right? This is more a PowerPoint presentation that's geared around somebody reading through it rather than me presenting off of it, even though I am going to be presenting off of it today. We're going to try to reduce clicks. So in your classroom PowerPoint presentations, you might have things come in one bullet point at a time. Not going to be using that with online. We want to make sure that if they're not interacting with it, the content's all there for them to read, because otherwise they're going to miss things. They're going to start clicking real quick, then it's going to go too far, then they have to go back. So we're going to kind of simplify those. Under 10 minutes when possible. Your PowerPoint in the classroom might run something more like 30 minutes, 45 minutes, something like that. When we're talking online, we want to keep those short. We might have a couple of them, but we're going to keep them short. And then the other thing that we need to think about is in our online classrooms, everything is going to be driven by the student. So anytime you're doing these for an online classroom or asynchronous, so it doesn't have to be an online classroom, but just asynchronous, you're not there with them, make sure you're running through it as if you are the student. So not with your current level of knowledge, but what you think the student's bringing to it, and see if it still makes sense. So we're going to kind of go ahead and get started. But another quick sidebar of what do I mean by interactive? So to me, we're going to take this in kind of a different direction. What we're talking about today when we talk about interactive is the student actually doing something with the PowerPoint. So it's not going to be as much content delivery as it is going to be exploring the content in a different way. So that could very easily be pen and paper. Maybe you have them say, hey, I want you to go through, make these notes, answer these questions, things like that, so that it's different from just read what's on the screen. Maybe in the middle of that PowerPoint, you send them out to the internet, or you send them back to their book, or you send them to do research. But it's going to be that idea of they're not just necessarily staying in that PowerPoint. We're going to focus on a few technical things today. And then my hope is that maybe we can come back around to a few of these, and I can show you a few examples of kind of what interactive, if you're not so comfortable with the tech that I show you today, a couple ways that you can make interactive ones, but aren't quite so tech heavy. So we'll get back to that hopefully at the end if we have time. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with a video. This is about 5 minutes long. And we're actually going to sit through and watch the whole thing, because I think it's a really good primer for some of the things that I'm going to show you and some of those ideas. And there is a point in the video where it's going to ask us to pause. We're not going to pause. We're just going to kind of keep going and kind of watch till the end.
Let's make things interactive with trigger animations. One of the worst things about presentations, whether they're walls of text or great visuals like this, is that presenters are forced to talk about everything on the slide. So you end up talking about more than the audience may need. And the idea of skipping over something tends not to fly with people listening, as it sounds unprofessional, like you've not made the effort to create a deck for this group. But what if I put up this slide and then decided live in front of you which area to explore in more detail? I could decide that you're most interested in security, click on that and bring up more information. Then you might need to know more about scale, so I can click on that and talk about it. But you don't need to know anything about continuity, so I'll move on. However, for another audience, you may want to know about continuity, so I can choose that instead of the other topics and explain what's happening. This flexible approach to what content appears is done using trigger animations. Trigger animations are easy and basic. The difficulty comes when looking for ways to implement them well. On this slide, there's a screenshot of the Bright Carbon website, which I may just want to show you briefly, tell you it's well worth checking out, and then move on. Or you may be interested in knowing more about the services that we offer, which is this set of icons here. To give us choice, select the service icons image, go to the animation tab on the ribbon and add an animation. In this case, I'm going to choose Peek In and set it to come in from the right. Now, right-click on the animation in the Animations pane and choose Timing from the pop-up menu. At the bottom of this list of timing settings, you'll find Triggers, and this drop-down reveals more options, including starting the animation when you click on something else on the slide. In this case, I want the animation to start when I click on the website screenshot. And there you have the animation under a new trigger heading, so that the animation will only happen when you click on the website screenshot. To make things truly flexible though, you can also have the service icons disappear using the same technique. If you click on the icons image, go to the animations tab and add an exit animation, in this case a peek out animation, peeking out to the right, you can also trigger this animation to happen when clicking on an object. And that can be a different object or the same one. Again, right-click the animation, choose Timing, then Triggers, and in this case I'm going to choose the same website screenshot as before. This puts the animation into the same trigger heading as the peek in animation. And because I have the peek out animation set to start on a click, I can now toggle between the two. In show mode, the first click on the website brings up the service icons, and if I click again, it triggers the peek out animation, and I can keep doing this, bringing the object in and sending it out just by clicking on the screenshot. This gives you some nice options to really bring your content to life and explore it live with your audience, creating a more active engagement experience. Unlike this. What's your initial impression of this slide? Exactly. But of course, you can make it better using visuals and animations. Any ideas? Why not pause the video, take a moment to read it, and think about visuals that represent the story better? Got some? Good. What did you come up with? There are plenty of possibilities. And this is one option, to show the healthcare staff and talent development resources available, and then show the breakdown with millennials making up 30 to 40% of healthcare staff by splitting them apart in proportion, and showing that despite this, more than 85% of talent development resources go to baby boomers and Generation X, so there's clearly a disparity here. So what we need to do is identify individuals who are capable of stepping into leadership roles and accelerate their development through the organization with a symbolic jungle gym, so that they can become the future. Okay, so that's one option, and it's a good one, but it relies on me telling the story and you just listening to it. It's passively engaging. Instead, you could flip it around, using triggers to ask the audience what they think the numbers are. Here we've got the same staff icons, but now put a trigger on it so that clicking on the wrong percentage brings up an incorrect answer prompt, and the right answer brings up a correct answer prompt. You can then do the same with the resources. The idea here is that you're asking people a question and they have to actively engage and can meaningfully interact with the content. There are, of course, many other tools that allow you to take this kind of thing further, but they require different software or plugins. This is native PowerPoint, so always works and is right there in front of you. Give it a go and share your creations with us by emailing info@brightcarbon.com.
So what I really love about that video is it kind of shows me a couple different possibilities, but it's done really well, right? Like those graphics are really quite nice. And I want to kind of show you guys now a couple different things that are maybe a little more simple that we can try that maybe aren't quite to that level, but use those same techniques. Randall, you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Vicki. So I noticed that in most of the classes that we do, especially for eCampus courses, those PowerPoints are they're translated into some type of IP3 or MP3 format. Will this transfer into that in terms of allowing the interactive features?
So an interactive one wouldn't. And so a lot of the ones in your courses and some of the other courses I have, that uses iSpring, or it's been made into a video, and those can't be interactive. Well, the iSpring ones can, but that's kind of a whole separate thing. What I want to focus on today are ones that we could host in OneDrive and put into those classes to where they can kind of drive that PowerPoint. So it's just a matter of kind of how we finish that end product. Because if it's not interactive, turning it into a video can actually be better sometimes, because then they're not stuck clicking. They can just kind of listen and watch. So it kind of depends on our content and what we have in there. So for this one, what we're going over today, we wouldn't want to turn that into a video because we want them to actually click and interact with that PowerPoint. So this is a screen that is kind of meant to be educational for you guys as well. And that's the first interactive piece is, hey, let's put a video into our PowerPoints that students can watch. So, it's right there, and then you can have a question on the next slide so that they're not watching the video in the course, then maybe going somewhere else to go through the slides. It's right there, right in the slides for them to watch. So when you're going to insert video into your course, you have 3 different options that are going to pop up. Now, this is the newest version on the PC. And when I go to it's the insert tab in PowerPoint, and I click on video, I'm going to have 3 different options. I'm going to have this device. And when I click on this device, this is the type of window that's going to pop up. This is going to allow me to basically go through and choose what file I want. I can choose stock videos, which basically PowerPoint has a section of videos that you can use. You could type in a subject here and pop it into your video. Not going to be super helpful all the time, but they might have something neat. And then there's always online video, which is what I just did, where you can copy and paste that YouTube link and it will stick that video right in your presentation. So you'll notice here, I have 3 different buttons that kind of open up different items. So as I click each one of these, it's actually showing a different item. But I'm going to end the show because I actually want to show you guys this page and what it looks like. So when I'm building this page, what I have to do is I have to put all of those things all on this page together. So those 3 different pop-outs are all kind of stacked on top of each other over here. And this is what I see kind of, from the build side. And then over here, what I did is I created 3 action boxes, which is pretty simple. You can just go up to insert, shapes, and then at the very bottom, they have these action buttons. And I really like this blank action button, which is at the very, very bottom right hand of that huge list of shapes. And basically what you do is you can put a box in, and then you can kind of change how that box looks. When I just click it now and I add a box, it's going to be kind of this like blue color. I'll hit cancel on the actions for right now because I don't need to do anything with it. But I can always go up here to the different styles and I can make it so that the box is kind of empty. So when I put it on top of things, it's not covering them up. So that's what I've done here is I've made basically 3 different boxes. Then what I've done is using the animation page or the animation tab rather, I have created a whole series of animations that happen when I click on things. And we're not going to go into a ton of granular detail, exactly everything I did, because at the end of this presentation, there's going to be some links. I'm going to post in the chat section a link to this presentation so you can go through it later and you can get access to those links. You'll be able to Google things, once you've kind of got an idea of what you want to do. You could Google something like, how do I trigger something to appear in Photoshop? How do I trigger something to disappear in Photoshop? So once you have the language, you can start reaching out. And there's tons of tutorials that do go really nice and slow over this content. I just kind of want to show you an overall idea of what I did. So here at the very top, I'm actually telling it to hide these 3 items because I didn't want those to show up when I first went to that page, right? Because it's weird to be sitting here looking at all 3 images. So I just told it right off the bat, okay, I don't want to show any of those 3 pictures. Then the next thing I did is I said, okay, when I click on this device, so I renamed my box this device. When I click on this device, I want to show, which are these nice little green ones, it's kind of color coded. I want it to show the picture that is the insert video from my computer, which is kind of this middle one here. And I want to tell it, okay, but also make sure you hide the other 2, because I definitely don't want to see those. And I've done the same thing for each one of these boxes. I've said, okay, when I click on stock videos, I want you to show me the stock video picture, hide the other 2. And same thing for the online video. When I click that, I want you to show me the online video, hide the other 2. And that lets me kind of hide and show everything over and over again. So that's kind of a complex way, right? This one is a pretty complex slide. I mean, you can see I've got 3, 6, 9, 12 actions there that I had to set up. So that's, kind of a more complex one, or a lot of things going on, right? And I kind of had to picture that in my mind. Okay, when I click on this box, what really has to happen? Because making other things disappear can be really important, you know, when they're stacked on top of each other like this. So my next one that I was going to show you guys is a simple flashcard. Okay, so this is an easy one. You could, once you have these slides, you'll be able to download them from OneDrive. You could actually take this slide, copy and paste it 100 different times, and just change the text that's on these and use this as a template. Because once it's set up, it's going to be pretty easy to change. So flashcards are a great one because you've got to set it up once, then you can just copy and paste that slide 10, 20 different times, and you've got 20 flashcards. So here, what I'm doing is I'm going to click and I'm going to move this to kind of show you guys what I have on this page. So I have two big action buttons. I have one that's my question card. That's the one in blue. How many actions does it take to make a simple flashcard? And then I've got my answer card in green. So it takes 3 actions, one to show the question card, 1 action to show the answer, and 1 more to hide the answer. So I'm going to put these back on top of each other so that they're stacked. So what I have over here, my animation pane, is I have show my question card. That's the very first one, right? Because when I come to this slide, I want that question card to be up. Then when I click on the question card, I want it to show me the answer card. So it flips it over. Okay, let's say I maybe want to go back and look at the question one more time. I'm going to tell it, because now I have my answer card up, I'm going to say when I click the answer card, I want that answer card to go ahead and disappear. So let me show you guys what that looks like. So this is our first action. It's showing the question card. When I click on the question card, it's going to show the answer card. Now the answer card is on top. So this is the only thing I can really click on. So what I want to do is say, okay, when I click the answer card, we're going to make that disappear. So now we're back to just showing that question card, and it loops again, right? So when I click on the question card, shows me the answer. Click on the answer card, it's going to delete, or it's going to hide the answer card so that all I can see is the question card. So it's going to go back and forth with those two. This one is, again, it's that more technical, but this is a really simple one, and you can use it for so many different things. If you have this slide as a template, or maybe a set of 20 of these same slides, you can have your students download these and have them write their own question and answers, have them create their own flashcards using this. Because once these actions are set up, all they have to do is go in and just edit this text on each one of those, and they're good to go. So maybe a little directions on how to do that, but pretty simple and easy. They could then share them with the class, and everybody could be working on everybody else's flashcards. There's so much you can do. You know, you can assign, okay, group 1, I want you guys to do chapters 1 through 4 for the final. Group 2, you guys are, you know, chapters 5 through 8. So break it up, get them all working on those things so that they can all work together to kind of create these interactives. This one is in here. It's just another template. It's a different way of doing it. We're not going to go into too much detail. But this one, instead of clicking on the cards themselves, these boxes at the top are what trigger those actions. So when I click this show answer button, it's going to show the answer. I can click on show question, and it's going to show that question. So it's just a different way of setting up that same flashcard idea. Okay, so that's kind of one way that we can use triggers. That's when we keep them all on the same page, right? So their interactive element is all kind of together. This next kind of way of maybe doing things, or way of trying things, is going to be using branching. And all branching really means is I'm going to take them to somewhere else in the PowerPoint that's not necessarily linear. So when we use PowerPoints, it's just kind of our regular normal way of doing things. We go from slide 1 to 2 to 3 and on. What branching allows us to do is to decide, I don't want to go to the next slide. I maybe want to skip a slide or jump somewhere else in that presentation. So that's what I have here is, let's say we set up a quiz question and it's true or false, and they click on the true button and it's going to take them to the true slide, which has the kind of the answers, whether it's correct. Now I can go back to the question if I want. And maybe I want to try the false answer. Let me see. Okay, I got it wrong. All right, let's try the false answer. And this is going to jump us straight to that false slide. So then I can go back to the question, or I can continue with the presentation. So this is going to jump us a bit ahead. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys what that looks like here in my presentation. So this I have set up as slides 9, 10, and 11. Let me make that a little bit bigger for you guys. So slides 9, 10, and 11 are my true, false question answer slides. My true button, this button here, is hyperlinked to go directly to slide 10. My false button here jumps them to slide 11. So by clicking on this button, it's going to tell them where they're going to be going, not just straight ahead. Then on these slides, this back to question button takes them back to slide 9, right? Because that's where my question was. And continue with the presentation is going to jump them to slide 12. So it's kind of that you've got to get it all in your head or write it down on paper. We'll see a little way to do that here at the end, hopefully. Looks like I'll probably have time. So that you can get everything straight on what all these buttons need to do. And once you get used to these buttons, once you get used to using triggers or you get used to using hyperlinks, it kind of goes much faster. And you can always copy and paste things and kind of, do it that way. So this is using hyperlinks to kind of move us through the presentation in that non-linear fashion. And for the students, when they're looking at it, they don't necessarily see all of this. They might when they download the presentation or before they put it into presenter view. Yes, they can see exactly what I'm seeing, right? They can see all the different things. None of this is graded, right? So it's all this formative assessment. We've gone through, maybe they've watched a video and I want to ask them a question about that video, kind of quiz yourself type thing. I put in one of these little branching true false questions, they answer the question and then they kind of just continue on about their day. So that's really what that's all about. Reveal is going to be going back to using triggers. Let me make that a little smaller. And so reveal items is basically just going to be a student's going to click on a certain part of a picture or a diagram or whatever it is. So let's say maybe this is a picture of a cell versus, just kind of this random picture that I've put in here. And what I've done is I've given them little icons for different things on the picture I want them to click, right? Like, so, this one over here is, okay, maybe more information about this flower. Maybe this is more information about the leaves, more information about the stems. And what I've done is I've said, okay, I'm only going to show this information when they actually click. This can, again, be used for that formative assessment of, think about, what is the name for this thing before you click on it. So you give them a little bit of directions, right? Quiz yourself, what bone is this? Or, any of those types of things. If you have a chart of, let's say, government structures, what belongs here? If you've got two things that are labeled, what's this one that's missing? they can click on it and then it will show them that information. So it's really similar to that first one I did with the pop outs, but this one, you know, I just used it so that that information stays the whole time. So here I can click on each one of these and that information is going to show when I click on the icon that's kind of next to it. So these are great for quizzes or really just exploring information in kind of a way that's different and kind of makes them stop and think for a second, maybe before they click on something. What do you know about this thing before I give you this information? Those types of things. So a lot of this is all going to come down to those prompts and the ways that you're using it. So when we go back and think about that video, you know, he was talking about it's easy to make these things, right? You know, once you have the technical ability, the hard part is finding out good uses for them. So that's going to be really all about you guys and your content and saying, okay, how can I use something to really make my students think? So we don't want to use this just to show information, right? We don't want them to have to click just to show the information. We really want that thinking component, that extra component that says, before you click this, what are your thoughts, right? That's really what we're going to want to be using these types of things for. So again, this is going to be in that presentation that I'm going to put in the chat here in just a few minutes. And so OneDrive is really fantastic. OneDrive is basically, it's a lot like Google Drive. It's just a place that you can host your files. And students can access them. You can embed it in your course. So this is maybe what an embedded one would look like in Blackboard, where I have this item that they can kind of click through the slides here. And then those buttons again would all, you know, be here for them to interact with, and it's right in Blackboard for them. But OneDrive works a whole lot better than Google Drive. If you've started in PowerPoint, OneDrive is definitely the place to go if you started in PowerPoint. Now you can do a lot of these things in Google Slides, but you have to start in Google Slides and build it in Google Slides. So it does a lot of the same things, but you just have to start there. So if you're starting in PowerPoint, OneDrive is going to be that place to host it. Students can go, they can download the file and then play it on their computer. It's just a little bit easier place to keep track of it rather than in Blackboard. Once you start putting files in Blackboard, things can start getting a little crazy. If you need to update something in the middle of the course, you know, you can just make that fix in OneDrive and it's automatically right in that course. So I really highly suggest using OneDrive to host your PowerPoint files and then being able to have your students access them there. So let's do questions first, and then I'll show a couple different examples for a few different ways that you can use these. So what questions do you guys have? I know that's a lot of information. It's really technical, but I hope maybe it got you guys thinking about things you could maybe try.
Vicki, if I could just offer something sort of additional as a tangent, is that okay?
Yeah, of course.
You presented really good techniques here that are very usable. Dr. Richard Mayer, UC Santa Barbara, professor of psychology and an expert on multimedia learning, through 35 years of research, devised 12 principles for multimedia learning. And I'm going to do a presentation on that at some point here. But it's sort of, if you use what Vicki's shown you with Dr. Mayer's 12 multimedia principles, extensive research on cognitive load theory and how the brain processes information and the need for to involve the learner in your multimedia design. If you'll take those concepts and apply them to what Vicki's shown you, you will improve learning outcomes. through use of PowerPoint. So I'll post that in the chat, and I'm sorry to hijack the conversation, but just a quick article on that I think you may find useful.
Okay. So it doesn't look like we have any questions, at least that I can see at the moment. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys a couple of, let's call it pre-mades or maybe easier ways to do this. So, you know, I've got some different links in here for different ways you can do things, but I want to show you a couple of things that are, you know, interactive. So the first one is this pen and paper quiz. So this is really simple. This is a PowerPoint, right? And it's got questions on it. Very simple. It's a quiz. There's nothing crazy about this. Students have to pull out some pen and paper and do this quiz, right? There's no actual interactivity technically wise, right? They don't click on the buttons don't do anything. They just run through this PowerPoint just like you would normally. And at the end, there's a key for them to check themselves. This is a pretty low level of interactivity, but it is interactive. And it's, you know, it can be quick. And the thing is that you can add pictures, you can add video, you can add so many things to this to make it more interesting than just questions on the page, right? Because straight questions on the page, okay, why would we do this over to using a quiz in Blackboard or something else? You know, even if it's ungraded, I would say the answer to this is that you can add in a lot of different elements, little bits and pieces. You can say, hey, go back and review this article, you know, or take a look at this paragraph, things like that, just kind of pulling in those bits and pieces to kind of take a look at, you know, something interactive that really requires no technical knowledge whatsoever. You guys could probably all do this today. Sit down and make a quiz on a PowerPoint and add some different things into it, you know, and have the students pull out a pen and paper and then check their answers at the end. So that's a really simple one. This one is a quiz show that we'll probably all somewhat recognize. This is a template. This is actually a Microsoft PowerPoint template. So this is an official Microsoft template. There are lots of templates out there from a lot of different companies. So you've got to be somewhat careful because some of them are trying to sell their products and you might have to sign up and things like that. So, so what I did was I pulled this one straight from that Microsoft PowerPoint. And all it is you would click on this number. It would take you to the right slide for that question. And then you can look at the answer and, you know, then kind of go back. So it's that self-check kind of thing. Something like this, again, you could send this out to groups of students or individual students and say, hey, fill out your own questions. You know, there's no reason that your students couldn't go through this and create this. You know, they just go through each slide. I mean, there's a ton of slides in this one. Maybe not have them do, you know, the 25 questions or whatever it is, but have them do a whole column or something like that. And all they do is just go through and edit these slides. This one's got the question on it, and this one's got the answer on it. And then when they present it, that's when it starts to make more sense, right? So I click on this category 3 for 30 points, and it takes me to that category question 3 for 30 points. So all that tech has already been done for you. So this is a just drop it out there, either you fill it in or maybe your students fill it in type of thing. So it's right there and ready for you.
Vicki, Ed had
So that's kind of
about Kahoot. Do you have any experience with Kahoot?
I don't. Is that a template? Do they have templates, Kahoot, or?
Actually, it's actually an application that the student puts on their iPhone or Android phone. and you ask questions in PowerPoint and they answer the questions on their iPhone. So it's very interactive. We use it a lot for sales competitions. And I guess I see what you're saying, you have to pay for it. I wasn't aware of that, but okay.
Yeah, so that's a big part of this presentation, to be honest, is so I've been working at the IDC for only 3 years here at EKU. And in that time, we've had at least 2 major third-party things that we use go from free to behind a paywall.
Yeah.
H5P is the first one that comes to the top of my head. I had several instructors that had a lot of content in H5P, and H5P is great, does good things, but now it's behind a paywall. And that's really why I kind of take up the flag for things like PowerPoint and trying to use the applications we have that are going to stay free for us, that are going to stay free for our students, that don't require some extra login, some extra account, that I don't know what they do or sell with your information later. To me, that's really important. And so, using the tools we have to the best of our ability, that's really what I'm kind of all about. So this last one here, this is another branching scenario. This is going to be one that was created on Google Slides. And so this one, again, it's really simple, but I've made a copy of this one. So this one's actually living on my own Google Drive, where I got this from. They encourage that. They say, hey, that save your own copy of this, feel free to use it however you need to use it. So this is a simple choose your own adventure, where you are driving along and you have to choose, okay, which direction do you turn? Okay, I'm going to turn left, and then I have 2 other options. I'm going to go to the lake, and it takes me kind of to that lake slide, and then it says, okay, you're done, go back, do you want to try again? So obviously this scenario is not really helpful for us, but you could make so many different decision trees, right? Maybe you have a patient or a student that comes to you with a problem, and you have, 2 decisions. How are you going to solve this issue? A or B. So when let me exit full screen. So one of the things that I really like about this one, and so this is something that I definitely think that if you're looking at doing any kind of branching scenario, draw it out. So what this does, they used a lot of shapes and things here. Pen and paper is way faster for me than trying to build these. I get really frustrated when I try to build these things. So pen and paper is the way I go, but they've got their slides basically numbered here. And they've got little arrows that says, okay, if they click on north, it's going to go to slide 2. If they click on south, it's going to go to slide 3. When you're on slide 3, if they choose to drive, it's going to go to slide 6. If they choose to turn, it's going to go to slide 7. So this is the true tree that guides your whole building process for your branching scenarios. And they don't all have to be this far, right? Maybe if they choose, to go north, maybe that's it. Maybe that's the end of it, right? And maybe then you send them back to the beginning. Okay, try again. And they're like, okay, this time I definitely need to go south. And so you can kind of provide them with that right path if they happen to go off that path. If they don't, great, right? If they know that answer and they know all of the things, there was no reason for them to necessarily go down those bad roads, the dead ends. So that's really helping us to differentiate our instruction for our students. If they're on the ball, they've done all the reading and they really understand those concepts, they can meet those objectives, bing, bang, boom, they're right through this in no time at all. But if you've got some students that are struggling, you know, this is where you can do that little bit of extra intervention. On those slides, you can say, hey, you chose this. This is why the other one maybe would have been a better answer, or, you know, refer back to the text or refer back to a video or whatever you need to do. You can use this to really provide so much information for students that are struggling. And it's kind of it's that self-test way, that little bit of formative assessment where students are going to know where they're at and how they're doing. You won't, right? These don't provide you that same kind of feedback, which is definitely one of the downsides. But as long as they're going through it, you know, I think they're really going to get something out of it. You know, if they go through it great the first time, then great. They get that positive reinforcement. Hey, I really do know these concepts. Like I'm good to go. I can take the exam for this module now. So definitely, if you are thinking about doing any kind of branching scenario, write it out for sure. This will help you with that tech side of it, of making sure your buttons are going to the right place. And then, as always, test. Everything you do, run through it. If you can, have somebody else that didn't build it run through it, try to get them to click on everything they can possibly think of to click to break it, because these do take time, for sure, especially your first one. It's going to take a lot of time to go through and get all the tech side of it right, but it's really worth it in the end. So I think that's all I have. I am going to now put in the chat. That is a link to my main presentation that I've done today. So feel free to go there, download that presentation, or save this link for later, to where you can just kind of go. It's hosted on OneDrive, so you'll be able to just kind of go and look through it if you want to. If you don't even want to download it, you can just use OneDrive to click through it. And it's got all of the it's got some really good tutorials that I've put up there. And then, you know, again, it's a matter of, if you kind of begin to know what you're searching for, your Google searches are going to come up with so many tutorials, but they're going to be 15, 20 minutes long, you know, each one to do one little thing. So there's tutorials out there on how to do all of these really in depth. Really what I wanted to do today was just kind of let you guys see some ideas. Think about using PowerPoint, not as a way to deliver your content, but as a way for your students to explore that content. So I'm going to open it back up to questions, see if anybody has any more questions or comments or free talk.
You know, I've done a fair number of these, Vicki, and if I stepped on anybody, just interrupt me because it's about you guys. But I have done a fair number of these trainings. I think for faculty, a big key is just knowing what's possible and then finding that one little core trick or skill or competency or one little thing to add to your existing knowledge about how to do PowerPoints, and then find success in that, and then move on. Also, if you work with an instructional designer in an e-campus course, you know, if you have a good presentation that's already there and have some ideas about how you want to extend that relative to what Vicki's shown you, it's very easy for us to go in and help make those things happen. So just thought I'd offer that. And thank you so much, Vicki. This is great.
Hey, Vicki, is that quiz show, the Jeopardy one, is it, did you say that's already a pre-built PowerPoint in Microsoft?
Yes. So one of the links that's in here is this PowerPoint templates link. So this takes you to the official Microsoft page. And these are all the different templates they have. And there's somewhere in here that I think if I click browse templates, there's some way I could, there we go, search office templates. There we go. So I just searched for quiz. And it's the very first one that shows up. They call it color coded quiz show game because they can't really, copyright and whatnot. So that's one that's on there. When I open this on their page, I can download it. And that downloads as a PowerPoint file, and then you can use that kind of however.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Mhm.
Any questions, any general questions? Reserve the right not to know anything. Vicki, thank you so much. And thank you all for your time today in participating. And if there's any way we can help you, please let me know. I'm chris.daniel@eku.edu. Glad to help. Are you victoria.sikora or vicky.sikora?
Victoria.Sikora.
Victoria.Sikora@eku.edu. Glad to help sort of fill in some gaps or help get you started. Just let us know how we can help you. That's our goal, help our students.
Yep. And start small. Start small. Don't try to make something huge. Do something small, see how it goes, and then build from there. Because once you have the skills, it's so much easier to expand on it. But getting some of those tech skills, that's going to be the hump, right? That's going to be that first thing is making sure you've got those. But once you have that down, you'll be able to do a lot of different things.
Okay, we'll wrap it up. I'll stop recording now.